Kia ora tātou katoa. In the program, it stated that I was to do a kōrero yesterday mō ngā kōrero poropiti, the prophecies of Aparehama Taonui. That is what I'm going to do today. And I guess I want to start by acknowledging our karakia again, simply because some of the kōrero that we're going to enter into is kind of like a journey. And it is a journey looking back to going forward. In a journey that we've done to healing our spirit worldwide, we met a Canadian person called Rod Jeffries. And Rod Jeffries shared with us a framework that, and then gave us permission to use it. So I'd like to use that framework to kōrero about us. And I guess it goes back to what it was in yesteryear and what that journey was that took us from yesteryear to where we are today. And let's begin with what really matters to all of us. Who's squeaking? If we look at this circle, and we placed inside this circle all our mokopuna. And on the outside of that circle, we would place the mothers to our mokopuna. And the mothers to our mokopuna, of course, would be looking in. And if you were to ask those mokopuna, how are you? Pēhea ana koutou? Oh, we're nice, we're lovely, we're loved. Our mothers are watching over us. And then we put on the outside of the mothers, the grandmothers. And putting on the outside the grandmothers, they're looking in and teaching the mothers how to be mothers, how to look after those precious mokopuna, how to look after the reflections of the tupuna, how to breastfeed properly, how to look after yourself as a mother in order for you to be able to look after your mokopuna, our mokopuna, your children. And in doing that, this is how we cook. This is how we prepare food. This is what we do in preservation. And this is how we look after our whare, so that our whare is warm and our whare is clean for our mokopuna. And that happened on a daily basis. And in that teaching, of course, women were treasured at the time that it was their moon time. When it was their moon time for our women, our mothers and grandmothers looked after our mokopuna so that the mothers could look after themselves in moon time and understand the reasons why in moon time they didn't go into the gardens. In moon times why we didn't go fishing. Why? Because we are a sacred being, and in our sacredness we were and are actually in a very tapu space during moon time, the cycle of moon time. And those were precious. That was how I grew up with my grandmother. And that's how I teach my daughters. And that's how I expect for my mokopuna and my mokopuna tuarua, because it is an ancient learning as it applies today. And sure, women can do anything. On the outside of that cycle, of course, are the grandfathers. And the grandfathers are also looking in. And the grandfathers are looking in to support the grandmothers, who support the mothers, who in turn support the mokopuna, who in turn support the mokopuna. So that is what we're asking for today. That is called the tiaki of the whānau ora that we are talking about. On the outside of all of that, of course, are our men. And our men weren't looking in. Our tāne were actually looking out. And they were looking out to protect. They were looking out to protect those who were looking in. They were the ones who were the providers and the protectors. And they looked out to make sure that the enemy did not come within and spoil that picture, spoil what was happening as a lifestyle. Hakai mai koutou? What happened was, of course, in terms of that cycle, the whakatauki e tātou mā. Tā wahine he whakawhānau mokopuna. That which is the role of our women is to give birth, to hold the whare tangata of the genealogy of that whānau hapu and iwi. The preciousness and the sacredness of the womb of women. Tāte wahine he whakawhānau mokopuna. And that hasn't changed over the years at all. It has not changed. That is our role. Women have changed, societies have changed, but the tika of that kaupapa has not changed. Tāte wahine he whakawhānau mokopuna. That which is the role of our women is to hold the sacredness of the whare tangata, the womb of women. Tāte tāne, that which is the role of our men. Tāte wahine he whakawhānau mokopuna, tāte tāne he karawhiu I te tefa. And we have here a tefa. That which is the role of our men is to be the provider and the protector of the whare tangata, of the genealogy of the generations. Hakai mai ana koutou? Tāte tefa. The provider and the protector. This is the source of that protection, the tefa. That was highly skilled to enter into the domain of manhood in yesteryear, of course, was to know how to wield this tefa, a tefa, in order to become the provider and the protector. What has happened over the years, of course, is that in 1835, before 1835, during the time of the whalers and the sealers that came into our country, things started to happen things started to happen. With that introduction of whalers and sealers and others coming in from overseas, they brought with them the almighty thing that's still around today called alcohol. Oh, sorry, can't even spell the thing. They brought with them alcohol. They also brought with them other things, like up in Kororareka, for instance, the discussions that were being held. They brought with them alcohol, and as the signing of the Declaration of Independence happened in 1835, the signing of that declaration allowed others to come into the country, bringing with them in Kororareka, where it began, prostitution was happening. And then we moved into 1840 into the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi. And during that time, with the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi, ki mai te kōrero a Aparehama Taonui. Aparehama Taonui said, he tani whā kei te haere mai, ona niho he hiriwa he kaura ko tōna kai he whenua. That was before 1835 in the signing of the Declaration. There is a demon on its way, and that demon has teeth of silver and gold and an insatiable diet for land. That was the coming of colonization. But Aparehama did say, kaua e mataku I te hiriwa me te kaura. Do not fear the silver and the gold. Just do not allow it to become your God. And we hear about budgets. We hear about contracts. We hear about a whole range of things that are happening in our world. Kaua e tuku I te hiriwa me te kaura, hei atuatanga mō. Do not allow it to become your God. And we need to remember that. So it got to 1840 in the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi. Aparehama threw the kahu, the cloak. The cloak was thrown over the top of the table to sign the treaty. And along come Governor Grey and the rest of them, and threw the Union Jack over the top of the kahu. And Aparehama called out, kaua e haina tia I te treaty runga I te haki Pākehā. Do not sign that treaty on the Union Jack, because that Union Jack represents ngā panekoti a te tahi wahine ke ingarangi noatu. You will be signing your mana under the skirts of Queen Victoria. Kaua. However, someone mentioned kohatu, taringa kohatu earlier on. It got signed on top of the Union Jack. So, Aparehama said, e ngāpuhi, kua huri au. And so Aparehama Taonui left Waitangi and settled in a place called Rotorua on the Kaipara Harbour. And he's still there today. However, the advent of the signing, we all understand. We all know that history. In 1883, Aparehama died. But before he died, he gave one more prophecy. He gave one more prophecy, and the prophecy that he gave was, he tani whā kei te haere mai, he tani whā kore rawa koutou e kitea. There is another demon on its way. It is a demon that you will not see. He tani whā tai kuhu tai huna. It is a demon that will arrive stealthily and deviously, and you will not see it coming. Kia kite rāno koutou I ngā kanuhi a wō mokopuna. You will not see that demon arriving until you see it in the eyes of your mokopuna. And when you do, this is what you will see. You will see your mokopuna reduced to total dependence on you. We all know that that demon that Aperehama speaks of is the drugs and the alcohol. Your mokopuna will be reduced to not being able to look after themselves. They will be totally wairangi. They will be of no arms to be able to care for themselves. I tēnā taniwhāke te haere mai. Now that was predicted in 1883, before Aperehama died, that those demons will be coming. That's how insightful our people were. Every iwi in this country have prophecies that they can relate to. This is a prophecy of Aperehama. This taonga from Aperehama's kōrero was created by a tupuna called Papa Urahia, and then went to another papa, to another one, till it finally got to me to kōrero about. And it's a responsibility that we hold to ensure that the message is given for our people to understand. And this has travelled quite considerably. There are two taonga on this table. This taonga belonged to my great-great-grandfather, the Paipara Tapu. There are some things written in there that I prefer not to translate. That goes along with this kōrero here. This kōrero here is rongo, been named rongo. And so, with that advent, let's move on in our treaty towards the 1900s. And within the 1900s, we get to policies that have affected our journey. Policies that lead to where we are today with a lot of our people, with a lot of our young. A journey whereby, let's come to the 19th, we know that our people went to war, for a war that did not belong to them. We know that whānau were absolutely fragmented because a lot of our people died in the war. The First World War wasn't enough. We had to have a Second World War, of which a lot of our families were fragmented, and a lot of our leaders died in the war. And during that time, of course, leading into the 40s, into the 50s, with the colonial policies that were being established, and the fragmentation of this. In the 1960s, for instance, we all know that the Hun Report in education talked about a thing called assimilation. And Maori screamed out, no, we're not going to allow assimilation. We are talking tino rangatiratanga. And so the policies moved from assimilation into a housing policy, and it's still alive in Auckland, a housing policy of what they called integration. So in one of the towns in Auckland, we've got an integration of housing that was built that actually has 5 Pākehā houses, 2 Māori ones, and another 5 Pākehā, so that these Māori could learn how to be good brown-skinned Pākehās. And they called that integration. And we said, no, tino rangatiratanga. So they moved from integration and said, well, what we'll do is we'll have a policy of multiculturalism. while there was only one culture that ruled in the country, we will call it multiculturalism. And in the meantime, while all that was going on, cities were developing. So we have Otara, for instance, Otara in Auckland. Rangi Walker wrote his thesis based on Otara, and it had to go under lock and key. No one was allowed to read Rangi's theses. And the difference between the development of Otara and the development of Te Atatu North at that time was that Te Atatu North was dry, but Otara was built on the front door of DB breweries, which made a difference, of course, in terms of the society that was developed there. And talking about moving for employment. So the freezing works began, and our men who were looking outwards to support in there had to move to find employment. And then, of course, these grandfathers followed them to find employment. Then when they found employment, they came back and took the mothers with them. During the 60s, these mokopuna moved out under the bridges in Auckland and became the street kids of the 1960s. This is real. This is real stuff. It really happened. And you ask the mokopuna out here, how are you fellas feeling? And they'll say, well, we feel abandoned. We feel unloved. We actually feel like no one's there for us anymore, at all. And with the mothers moving to support the fathers in employment under the guise of looking for work to survive. While all that was happening and our kids were having kids under bridges, the gangs became very strong. So the whānau of gangs grew in Auckland. Then, of course, the government policies of the Maori Affairs Department was to include, for the workforce, the Pacific Island nation. And so the government did a good job of dividing Maori and Pacific nations at that time. And how they did it was the Maori Affairs Department became the Maori and Pacific Island Affairs Department, and so the resources that were belonging to Maori were shared, creating terrible rifts at that time, which led itself into gangs. And so we moved on from there. That was the fragmentation, peoples, of our whānau concept that we are trying to fix today. We are trying really hard to fix it today. It's difficult to find whānau who don't have mokopuna, who look like rongo. I have two in my whānau right now I'm trying to deal with. Aperaha Mataonui said, kore rawa koutou e kitea kia kitea rano I ngā kanuhi a wō mokopuna. Engari, kaua e patua o mokopuna. Kaua. Do not beat your mokopuna for that. You didn't see it coming, and neither did the mokopuna. Te rongoa, the solution within our whānau is to hipoki wā tātou mokopuna ki te korowai aroha a te whānau. Wrap our children, wrap our mokopuna in the cloak of love of the whānau. That is the solution. As difficult as that might be for some, it is the solution that we must never give up on. Must never give up on. So it's important, e tātou mai, if we are talking about whānau ora of tomorrow is to recognise what we looked like yesteryear and how it was cleverly manipulated for us to be where we are today. And we can fix it. We can fix it. We don't have to live in that dilemma at all. We can fix it. It is within every whānau the ability to actually fix that up. And that is to work with each other. Work with each other. We have to be careful, I think, because there are a lot of organisations out there receiving a whole lot of money on our misery. On our misery. Recognise them. Hoino e tātou mā. I guess I want to complete by saying that to our men, we cannot cope in our whānau without our men. It is true that in Mount Eden prison anyway, our men were saying, if only someone loved me enough to kick my ass. Said, all right, you want to kick up in the ass? I've got a lineup of people who can do that without any problem at all. And we are working at the moment that from the time our people enter those prisons, that hohaurongo begins for them before they come out, so that they come out and we're prepared and ready to offer te koro e aroha a te whānau, ki runga ki wā tātou tamariki. Nō reira e tātou mā, I want to read a story that was given to me and to say to our men, examine carefully. And I say this to my 19 mokopuna, to my 13 grandsons, Wetahi he taringa kohatu. And actually, Tefa can do a good job on taringa kohatu. To examine with them, to help my grandsons, to help our men identify what does your tefa look like today. Because today the tefa might be the bus that they drive to be the provider and the protector. It might be the computer that they drive to be the provider and the protector. Could be the pen they drive to be the provider and the protector. What happens to the mana and the tapu of our men when their tefa is to stand in a dole queue? If we were to look at the competition that our men need to go through in order to become the provider and the protectors, there's a long queue. A long queue. So to our men, you're not on your own. You are not on your own. And don't be ashamed to ask for help. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. I'll just say this about the keeper. The sun may be clouded, yet ever the sun will sweep on its course till the cycle is run. And when into chaos the system is hurled, again shall the builder reshape a new world. Your path may be clouded, uncertain your goal. Move on, your orbit is fixed to your soul. And though it may lead into darkness of night, the torch of the builder shall give it new light. You were, you will be, know this while you are. Your spirit has travelled both long and afar. It came from the source, to the source it returns. The spark which was lighted eternally burns. It slept in a jewel. It leapt in a wave. It roamed in the forest. It rose from the grave. It took on strange garbs for long eons of years, and now in the soul of yourself it appears. From body to body your spirit speeds on. It seeks a new form when the old one has gone. And the form that it finds is the fabric you wrought on the loom of the mind from the fibre of thought. As the dew is drawn upwards, in rain to descend, your thoughts drift away in a destiny blend. You cannot escape them, for petty or great, or evil or noble, they fashioned your fate. Somewhere on some planet, sometime, somehow, your life will reflect your thoughts of your now. My law unerring, no blood can atone. The structure you built, you will live in alone. From cycle to cycle, through time and through space, your lives with your longings will ever keep pace. And all that you ask for and all you desire must come at your bidding like flames out of fire. Once listen to that voice and tumult is done, your life is the life of the infinite one. In the hurrying race, you are conscious of pause, with love for the purpose and love for the cause. You are your own devil. You are your own God. You fashioned the paths that your footprints have trod, and no one can save you from error or sin until you have heart to the Spirit within. Nō reira e tātou mā, tēnā koutou, kia ora hui hui anō rā tātou katoa. Thank you. We're going to sing a song. We're going to sing a song.
Whakarongo mai, ki te reo e tangi nei.
E ringi hea mai ana, mai aku ka mō, ngā roe matae.
Whiti mai te rā, ngaro ana te mamai, ngaro noa te pauri, kaua e mauriri, anei anō he rā. Maranga mai e te iwi, o ngā hapu ngā pui, ki ama, ki ahu, ki apu, puri ai, ki ngā akoranga nui. Takahia te ao, ka kitea te